It is just gone 20 past 10. Andrew Urquhart with you on the program today. Do hope that your Thursday morning is going well so far. A pleasure to be joined on the program by Andrew Urquhart. She's part of the team of the Social Policy and Parliamentary Unit of the Salvation Army. Anna, kia ora. Thanks very much for joining us today.
Morena, Andrew. Thank you for having me.
Now, I understand very busy recently. You've been doing submissions, which is part of the work of the Social Policy and Parliamentary Unit. Submissions on the Parole Mandatory Rehabilitation Program Amendment Bill. That's quite a mouthful. What are some of the things about this bill that perhaps you're concerned about or perhaps don't need amending?
So we just finished a oral submission on this bill, and basically the MP Todd Stevenson, it's his bill. The intent of the bill, I guess the principle behind the bill, is trying to improve people's chances in regards to reintegrating back into the community by getting them to engage in rehabilitative programs inside when they're in prison. And so basically what it's doing is mandating rehabilitative programs before you're eligible for parole. And I guess when it comes to the intent of the bill, because the Salvation Army is in the reintegration space, and so we very much support reintegration and rehabilitation efforts. But the bill in itself, we've opposed it, and many others have opposed it. Like, I listened to submissions before me, and it was all very much, everyone was saying the same things, like this bill, at the moment, corrections doesn't have the capacity to be able to provide enough rehabilitation programs. So if we're mandating it, then that's just going to mean the number of people in prison are going to stay there even longer. And there are already provisions in the law as well that ensure people are engaging in rehabilitative programs. But corrections has been facing lots of staffing challenges. And just to a bit of insight, it's $555 a day of taxpayers' money on a sentenced prisoner. And so if we're making them wait there even longer purely because there's no programs for them, then that's sort of a waste of resources. And there was a lot of amendments that people asked the select committee to be able to consider, like what about an equivalent a program that's done when they're released, or other alternatives like that. Yeah.
Now, I suppose that's the difference between a ideological position or political position and the pragmatics of it. Yeah, but how is this going to work in practice? Everybody in favour of rehabilitation instead of going, okay, we've locked you up for a certain period of time, time's up, off you go. But I suppose it's a little bit chicken and egg, isn't it? It would be nice to have rehabilitation for all of the prisoners. However, this is something which needs to be resourced. You can't just turn on a tap and have those resources magically appear.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we highlighted that from 2019 to 2023, there was like a 45.3% drop in program placements for rehabilitative programs. And that's not because prisoners weren't wanting to engage in the program. That's purely because of, challenges around staffing, challenges around funding, challenges that are still lagging because of COVID. I mean, you see on the buses, the bus stops, on TV, on YouTube ads, all of the corrections ads for recruitment. So there's a huge push there in regards to corrections trying to recruit purely because there's not enough staff, and that's created a myriad of challenges for our prison system and how it's run. But primarily when we're looking at rehabilitation programs, there just isn't enough placements because there aren't enough programs because there aren't enough staffing. So it's a domino effect that each domino just keeps dropping.
And these are specialised skills as well. This isn't just, okay, give the person a uniform and a set of keys and away you go. The rehabilitation staff, this is a highly specialised skill. They need a few degrees like the ones you got on the wall behind you, Anna.
And none of these degrees behind me is going to help me to get a job at corrections. But yeah, for corrections officers, they have to fly down to Wellington, they have to get trained. But also there are specialised staff in corrections that do run these rehabilitation programs. And this isn't a beat up on corrections. I mean, these challenges have been there, even with the last government, the government before that. And so it's about how do we better invest in our prison system to be able to provide restorative justice, as opposed to just locking people up and them coming out and not having been rehabilitated or have moved away from reoffending. And so, yeah.
I mean, it is the downstream consequences. It's one thing to say, oh gosh, we're going to get tough on crime. We're going to lock these people up. But if there's not the prison space, if there's and hey, even if we build the prisons, if there's not the staff to be involved with new prison facilities, and again, more prison space isn't something that you can achieve quickly. It's probably going to take longer than a political term in order for these results to happen. You need to have the resources in place before you bring the policy in, not the other way around, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like this bill is basically going to amplify the issues that are already there. It doesn't necessarily do anything in regards to trying to alleviate the pressures that we're seeing in our prison systems, or it's not going to provide other avenues for rehabilitation. And so it's compounding the current issues. And so what we need is practical solutions that make a difference, make a tangible difference for those on the front line, for those working in corrections, for prisoners that are going through corrections facilities. And so these types of bills aren't necessarily helpful. If you looked at the bill, just looked at the title of it, you'd probably think the public will probably think that's a great bill, let's pass it. But unless you look at the crux of what the finer details say and you understand, I guess, the context that we're working in, it's actually going to make things a lot worse for crime levels. And we know that the government's doing a lot in regards to addressing law and order. I mean, this bill isn't going to make much of a difference. In fact, in our view, it will probably make things a lot worse.
In some ways, it's the opposite of rehabilitation. It is literally setting prisoners up to fail because it's saying, well, in order to do this, you've got to jump through these hoops, but these hoops aren't available at the moment. Looks like you're stuck there. Nobody moves forward in that scenario.
Yeah, it's sort of like a catch-22 situation. And I guess from our perspective as working with a lot of people that have come out of prison, the challenge is when you have people caught up in the cycle of catch-22 situation, is that they kind of lose hope. They become deflated. They're trying their best, but there's just, there's limitations in the system. And when they start to lose trust in the justice system, that undermines rehabilitative efforts. So anything that that corrections or anything that those that work in this space can do to mitigate losing trust in the justice system, I think that's integral and that's really important. And just we highlighted during our submission that this bill will make a lot of offenders lose trust in the justice system, and that will just that'll work out really, really wrong for our recidivism levels and the level of reoffending in this country.
We also want rehabilitation programs that work, transformational change in individuals' lives which impact communities, not just a box-ticking exercise of, hey, we rushed through this program.
Yeah, absolutely. And Salvation Army is a Christian organization, and so that spiritual aspect, that holistic approach is very much in there to look at every aspect of an individual's life. Ultimately, we know that Christ is the ultimate transformer of hearts, and so if there's avenues that we can look at at a holistic approach, that's integral. And even when you're looking at the programs, one program is not going to fix an individual. It's like it's making sure that they're engaging in release to work programs. It's making sure they are engaging in if offending specific, like whether it's a violent program or whether they're engaging in like a culture program. And so it's a mixture of programs, but ultimately you need to look at I guess the person holistically, as opposed to just the individual, which is which doesn't make much of a difference long term.
Now, you mentioned beforehand Salvation Army, of course, working through a spiritual lens. Now, I understand that you were involved in leading a devotion for your team based in Galatians 6:9. If you could unpack some of those themes, some of the, I suppose, practical application of Scripture.
Yeah, I guess for our unit, for those who don't know what our unit does, our unit is kind of like the mouthpiece in regards to what comes out of the government and what comes out of local councils, and we speak back on behalf of the 150,000 that we support. And it's quite deflating because a lot of what's coming from the government is like just going against what we've been pushing for, going against what we've been advocating for. It's been, particularly with the finance sector, it's pushed us back in regards to the traction that we've made in regards to advocating in this space. And so I was really encouraged in reading Galatians chapter 6, verse 9, where Paul says, and let us not be weary in well doing, for in due season we will reap if we faint not. And I took that to my team on Tuesday, and I just really encouraged them because last week we had Red Shield week, and I just want to thank everyone, that stopped and gave us, coins or gave us cash
Yeah.
or stopped and said thank you for the work. If you're listening, we really appreciate it. But also in those instances, we had lots of people stopping and saying thank you for the work that we did and telling us about their brother or their uncle that came through a program, or someone that used to be a pastor in the Salvation Army that they're related to. And that really encouraged me. That really reminded me to not be weary in pushing, I guess, these fights and, submissions and writing responses to what the government's putting out. Because, as Paul says, in due season, we shall reap if we
Yeah.
faint not. And so it was encouragement to my team, but I guess it's encouragement for all of us believers out there that yeah, times are tough and times are hard, but God has placed in all of us different fishes and loaves that we can use to be able to do good, and it's a matter of continuing to do good even when, even when everything looks like it's falling down. Because in due season, we will reap if we faint not. And so, that was an encouragement that I took to my team, because it really encouraged me too.
Mm.
That I'm not necessarily wasting my time harping on about the same thing over and over and over again every Thursday with you, Andrew.
Well,
Well, like, I'm just complaining.
hey, look, we love the way you harp on about it, and these are such important issues. And thank you so much for your mahi, for the work that you and the rest of the team doing, being a mouthpiece, being a voice for people who are doing it really, really tough in society. Good on the Salvation Army, swimming against the tide at times, but hey, doing some good work, doing God's work in our community. Of course, if people missed an opportunity to support the work of the Salvation Army through the Red Shield Appeal, salvationarmy.org.nz. Anna, again, kia ora, thank you for what you do. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Andrew.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.